this is actually a really meaningful conversation for us to have, black women. Okay. I don't often make very many videos to black women, right? As a group, I'll respond to stupid comments like this, but I don't often make content to our women as a group. Okay. But I'm going to have this conversation with you in respect about this bullshit you just said here. Okay. All right. So she goes, then you beg us, I'm assuming that's really us, to join your stupid marches against white oppression. You are very dull. Okay. So we're just going to remove the insult from it and say that she's saying that black men want her to join our stupid marches. Okay. So your black business class and your black blue collar men, right? Guys who work in business, guys who own businesses, and your blue collar black men, the guys who are going to work every day. 43% of black men are blue collar workers. The ones of us that are going to work every day, okay? We don't want you to join our marches because we're not having marches, okay? The majority of the marches are organized by women. Black Lives Matter was organized by women. That's a woman's organization that fights for intersectionality, LGBTQIA. You know, they use black struggles as a platform to do that, you know, and to garner money. But then that money and those resources go to LGBTQIA issues within the black community and within just LGBTQIA issues in mass. So just so you know, the responsible black men of your community, that's not how, we're not asking you for that. Okay. I'm going to tell you first off how politics works really quick. Okay. I know you were taught the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch and voting and all of that, but there's a very important mechanism that nobody teaches you in civics class. Okay. And so you have each community, Arab, Asian, Indian, Jewish, all these different communities. They have money that flows into associations, affiliations, organizations, and special interests. And then those groups have well-funded individuals that they send to Washington to lobby for their interest. So they've got three things going on that are very important, okay? First, they've got these associations, affiliations, organizations, and special interests that they have built for themselves, funded themselves. That's number one. Number two, they have the lobbyists that go and speak on their issues, well-funded individuals that they send to Washington to get policies of protection and appropriation passed. That's the second very important thing that they have. And then the third very important thing that they have and that they do is they donate money to politicians when they are running. So when a politician goes to run for office, they got to get a lot of money because they have to go all around the country telling people why they should vote for them. They have to run news or media campaigns. That's social media, that's television, that's radio, that's all of the stuff that they need to do. Okay, it takes lots of money. And so these guys have to get tons of people to donate to them. And so who donates to them? What associations, affiliations, organizations of special interest donate money to them? Those people then are able to come back to that politician after they've been elected and get policies of protection and appropriation passed for the groups that they represent. So when the Asians got the Asian hate crime bill passed, that was because they had associations, affiliations, organizations that was able to stand up and say, hey, a couple of people, Asians got jumped on. You politicians, we gave you this, and this money, okay? And so now we need you to do something about it. And so something got done immediately, right? With the Arabs that were getting taken out of the country during the first year of Trump's election. They were able to come and say, hey, we gave you all this money. You better do something about it. Here's what we want you to do. And it stopped, okay? So with black folks, when something happens to us, y'all march. The women get together and they march. But they haven't put any money in the pockets of a politician. And there's no real associations, affiliations, or organizations that are giving money to politicians so that when they get across the line, that they owe something back. And that's the real mechanism through which the communities that are in this country, the cultures that are in this country, are able to get things done, not by marching. Where do you see Asians in America sitting up marching? Where do you see Indians in America sitting up marching? Where do you see Arabs in America sitting up marching? When something happens to their community that they don't like and they want something done about it, they've already paid for a seat at the table. So they just pull on their favors and they get it done. So for us, we don't have that. Black folks don't have that in any meaningful sense. We have the NAA and the NAACP and the ALCU. And they put no money into getting somebody elected. They don't donate any money. None. Zero. Okay? So when you guys sit up and march with Black Lives Matter, NAACP or ALCU, and they come to the rescue of black people who something bad has happened to that black person, it's not going to do anything except cause media attention. And that media attention doesn't result in a policy. There's been no policies since the 1960s that are meaningful that have been passed for black people, passed the Civil Rights Act. And the reason why was because that's why they took King out. That's why they took all these guys out. They got them out of there because they were able to meaningfully move the country in a way that resulted in policy without dumping money into the pockets of politicians. So they got them out of there. So that doesn't exist anymore. And it hasn't existed since 1960. It's 2023. It's been 60 years, 50 to 60 years, because 65, 68 is when they did all of that and finally got all of those policies passed. So we're talking 50 years. Okay. So we're not asking you to march for us. The business class, your blue collar workers, we're not asking you to march for us. Let me tell you who you're marching for. When we take a look at the men and women in our community who fill up the prisons, fill up the mental institutions, dropping out of high school, reading at a fourth grade reading level, right? Folks who are getting strung out on drugs, homeless, child runaways, 70, 80, 90% of these folks come from single mother homes, fatherless homes. So the way that your men see this, just so you know, I don't know if you knew this, is that you're marching for your own sons, not for us. Not for us, because the responsible men of your community, which are the majority of the men in the black community, don't have kids outside of wedlock. We don't. We marry before we carry, or we don't have kids at all. And so those men, we don't feel like you're sticking up for us. We feel like you're sticking up for your own sons. And these kids that you've made, your sons, your daughters that you've made, that you show up for when these marches of white men oppressing them, right? These kids are made, their mothers are women who were single, independent, don't need a man, want a man, don't need a man, body count don't matter, my body, my choice. They're all super liberal left women where they do what they want to do. They are unmarried women who had children by men outside of wedlock. They had Pookie's kids. Okay, that's how most of your men see this. Okay, now these are still my brothers. As black men, I still feel the loss of when something happens to a child or a young person or a young man. And I think it's unfair and I think it sucks. But the primary reason I feel like that kid is at risk is because most of the time he was made outside of wedlock with no father to mentor him, no group of men to protect him, because that's the man's responsibility, protection. But if you choose your responsible man to reproduce with, well, then they don't get protected. You don't get any protection as a woman. That's why black women say they're the least protected group of women on the planet, because they're also the least married group of women on the planet, right? And the kids don't get protected because you had the child with a man who didn't marry you first because he was an irresponsible man. So I'm going to tell you, the way you save the community is not by marching. It's by finding a man of character and submitting yourself as his wife. And if you are a woman, this is an important part, it's going to hurt to hear. If you are a woman that reproduces children outside of wedlock, there's no amount of marching you're going to do to make up for the damage that you've already done to the community.